Actually, it came out in Variety today, so you can speak to very important people in Game Changer were entered in 11 categories for the Emmys, including
Ah,
I'm looking at this like live.
that's
Cool.
bananas.
Do you have a comment on that about the chance of being an Emmy nominee?
It just is honestly so crazy.
Part of what this particular interview was about is about this kind of idea of content creator. And I'm curious because I feel like that term can be loaded. What do you think about the term be content creator and how it applies to you?
I love it. I'm like, I think you're totally right. It is loaded, and I think historically it feels like the type of thing that at its inception was meant to differentiate people that work in film and TV and people that like create things on their own and create things online and things like that that are like self-producing things. And it seems like a catch-all for a lot of different things. Like people that sit in a chair and have a podcast are also like content creators now because everything is clipped in like videos, and people that like write their own stuff or like self-producing. Like there's so much cool stuff. Like I feel like there's like I see a lot of stuff with like felt puppeting right now on my algorithm, and like those are content creators too, you know what I mean? It's like it's a catch-all for anybody that's creating something and making it like accessible online, and I think that's awesome. Like I think, Dropout as sort of like a content creation like house, I guess, or like a comedy content creation house. Like I'm super proud to be a part of that. And I think that the line is getting blurrier and blurrier as to like what one is versus what the other is, especially as like, I was really lucky I got to do a Peacock show. A lot of my peers that I do stuff with, like over at Smosh and Dropout, are doing stuff like that too. Like I feel like Reka's constantly working, doing things, and that line is just getting blurrier and blurrier. And it's like very cool to have a space in sort of like the Wild West of like content creation. I think it's neat.
Yeah. So part of what I thought was interesting is when we were talking with Sam yesterday, we were talking about the Emmys and how that's kind of like the next terrain for you guys, but it's an interesting thing because it's like, how do dropout content fit into the Emmys box? Like,
Yeah.
where, for instance, could very important people fit into that concept?
Yeah, it's like it's something we talk about a lot. I think that there is certainly room for things like this. Like, I think about, like one of the most popular YouTube channels of all time, Good Mythical Morning, has yet to like break through in the Emmys as well in a way that is just like so many people watch that. So many people love that content. It's like it just is so interesting that it feels like it does really feel like we are at a tipping point right now where some of these shows are going to start getting recognized because of their popularity and their quality. I mean, like I think like we put as much time and care, sometimes more, into the stuff we're making than like a lot of the streamers do. I think the quality is there. It'll be really interesting because I really do think we're on the precipice of them starting to get recognized in these more traditional spaces. Do they fit perfectly into those boxes? No, but I also think that like the Oscars are moving to YouTube. It's like we're also in a phase where like things are really stretching and moving and changing like they always have. There's a podcast category now for the Golden Globes. You know what I mean? Like I think things are starting to change. It's just a little bit slower, and I really think that these next couple of years here is when that change is going to start happening.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Sam and I talk particularly about kind of the challenges with Game Changer of like, when submitting episodes, how do you submit an episode that encompasses Game Changer but doesn't potentially isolate someone who has like no idea what Game Changer is? And like, how do you prove Game Changer is a game show they can understand but also is breaking down what a game show can be?
Yeah, yeah, 1000%. I'm like, VIP is interesting because it's like there's like talk of submitting us, and I don't know if they did this year in the talk show category. It's interesting because it's like it is a fake talk show that is categorically not a talk show because, well, like I guess it is in for in intent and purposes, and that like it's a host talking to somebody, but it's like it's a comedy variety show really at the end of the day. So it is just very interesting. Yeah, it's like it's interesting. It's like, and again, it's like stretching and changing. Like is that next to like Fallon and Seth Meyers or anything like that, the same thing? Whereas like Game Changer truly is a game show at the end of the day. It's like a cast that rotates in and out, but like could I see that next to Password and Jeopardy and things like that? Yeah, I definitely could. So again, kind of a roundabout way to go. I don't have a great answer, but I do think it fits somewhere.
I think that makes sense. Well, what do you find? Because you referred to what's nice about Dropout is that, like, because you can come in and be a contract player and, like, go off and do other things, that you can come back with the well kind of filled. What fills your well? What drives you in creating what you create?
Oh man, I love improvising. I really love creating stuff. I'm really lucky that like VIP has given me such a taste for like being an integral part of like creating a tone and what a show looks like along obviously with everybody else on that team. But I do like my training is all in acting. I do like really find that like getting to dig into like writing that somebody else has done and like work like that really makes me feel very creatively satisfied. But then also too like on a sort of like a more lateral scale, like I got to do an app season of Dimension 20 and like getting to create that character, but that was like a world that Brennan was building was also just like incredibly creatively satisfying. So I think just like getting to stretch different parts of like artistic muscles is really nice because then especially for VIP because that for me is like the thing that is the most creatively consuming thing that I'm doing these days. Doing those other things allows me to come back to VIP really full.
I also am curious for you because, like, I think I don't necessarily know if you'll have an answer to this because I feel like a lot of creation now, I think we're so focused on kind of creating the thing in front of us that we're maybe not thinking about like legacy. But like,
Mm.
if you could, like, what path would you like to build for other content creators to follow?
Whoa, that's a great question. I think if anything, like I'm really lucky that, improv really is like a ladder of hands, like I am here because there are people before me that pulled me up and like I really do find that like it's all of our responsibility to be pulling up the people that are coming up behind us. And it's tricky. Like in the dropout sense of things, like I it really felt like a kismet, right place, right time. I got so lucky that I was on a team with people that were doing stuff over at Dropout, and then I got to start doing stuff because my friends were doing stuff, and then some of my friends got to start doing stuff because I was doing stuff, and it just was like this, perfect like the orb of energy that all sort of like converged at the right place in the right time. Um, legacy for moving forward, I really hope to continue creating things that make a lot more spots. I think that like again like Dropout got to do that beautiful thing for me and I'm always striving to go like what are those opportunities, what are those spaces I can create for the people coming up behind me in a really practical sense, in a general sense of just sort of like I hope it would encourage people to like take risks and do weird things and don't feel like you have to be following like whatever the pattern is of like, oh, this seems to be the thing that people are buying, so I'm going to make the this thing that looks exactly like everything else that's out there. Like if you really follow your voice, if you really sort of like commit to whatever your thing is, there will be an opportunity for it to shine and showcase if you work really if you work really hard. But it's true, it's like if you really refine, especially in the comedy space is what I can speak to, like what you think is funny, or I guess, if you really work on your puppets or whatever it ends up being, if you just like really, you know, uh, uh, commit hard to it, there will be a space, there will be an audience, there will be other people that will connect to like whatever the humanity is in what you're doing, I think.
Yeah. What's been interesting is talking to the three of you over the past couple of days, like what all of you have reflected, no matter what the common conversation revolves around, is an appreciate like a gratitude for like collaboration in creation.
Improv is so interesting because it is something that you cannot do alone. You know what I mean? At the very least, you are doing it with the suggestion of an audience member. You know what I mean? Like there is some form of collaboration required. Often it's another improviser on stage. Obviously, there's solo improv, and that's a whole nother thing. But like you're often relying on the people around you. But beyond that, too, it's like it, it is the type of community that the only way in which you get work or you get on shows in a micro sense of it all is by people taking a chance and going like, I got to do a show because somebody asked me randomly one day, so now it's like now it's your turn. It's your duty to put names forward of people because somebody put your name forward at some point in time, and really like uh, take chance on folks, and like everybody's got such a unique comedic voice, especially at a certain level. It's just it's an opportunity of giving somebody a platform and letting the audience find them.
I think that's a really great point, and also part of what is reflective of Dropout, because like so many of the people on those shows have such a different sensibility, and yet they play so well together that I think that's part of what makes it fun from from a viewer's perspective, but also like inspiring because it's not like you guys are being forced into some cookie cutter.
Yeah, I'm like, I think it is the beauty of where Dropout is right now is we are allowed to make weird things, and weird things make it past the edit and into the world. I think there is a lot of stuff coming out of the streamers and the studio system right now that is being made out of fear. It feels like, where it's sort of like we've spent so much money on this, so many people's time, that we want to make sure that it is like exactly what the mean of people is going to watch, and it's like made for the middle. Whereas like, we're still in a space and in a place. I think Canada in general is doing really cool stuff with that too, but I think Dropout is also where it's like we get to like make cool weird things that are specific and from a specific POV. And if people don't watch it, that's also okay. To the point, like, we're freelancers. It doesn't get canceled. It still exists. Like, I think Total Forgiveness is a really good example of something like that. It was one season, and it is, in my opinion, like a perfect piece of media.
Well, I think part of what's so interesting about Dropout is that like it's because I've been talking to a lot of people in my friend circle and things like that about like what is it you like about Dropout so I can understand it beyond my own sphere.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's been really fun because it's like people get very excited about different shows, but it's like this thing where they feel like what they're getting is not something they're being fed, but something they are like choosing to participate in, I think.
Yeah.
And like to your point about streamers, like I think I think Dropout speaks to this idea that you can do something great, and even with Canadian television, which we talked about at some point, I forget which one of our conversations. And what a privilege to get to say that. Like, I don't remember which time we talked about Canadian TV, but like where like something like Heated Rivalry, where it was a low budget
Yes.
show that like Jacob Tierney is like, I'm gonna make this work, and then it becomes the hugest show on the planet. Like, it defied all these concepts of like what we are told we are supposed to want in terms of star power, in terms of budget, in terms of what you're supposed to be able to show on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, that one too also just I'm like, the thirst for, like, queer storylines, I think is, like, so deep and genuine, of ones that just, like, feel a little more like that are, like, sexy and, like, anyways, I could literally talk about that forever, and I will if, if I don't get stopped, but it's true. It's like, I think I I I hope people take the right lesson from that. I hope people take the right lessons from Dropout. My fear is that instead of going, like, let hire creative people to make stuff that they're really excited about. Obviously, you need producers to like rein things in on one way or another. But like in my experience, like people are really reasonable. Like with VIP, I get told I can't do stuff all the time, and that's totally fine. Like we work around, but like the heart of things, the things that are really important, like we're just so fortunate that we have the people up top that are really fighting for the creative vision. And if it's something that's really important to me or the director Tamar, the people up top, like David, who's the exec that works with us, and Paul, like are always have our backs on it. And I'm like, I feel so grateful because I know that that is not the case for people working in like massive with massive studios on massive productions. So it just is, it's amazing, it's incredible. And I think it is something that, like, again, because it's like protected by this like this dropout bubble of things, I'm just, I do really feel so grateful to have a space in this place and time that values the creatives that they're hiring, and trust their input on stuff.
And I think it's also interesting because like I feel like the other thing that we see in a lot of studio projects is like what feels like an idea of inclusion that is very strategic, where on Dropout it's just like it's just inclusive and it doesn't feel like that had to be a bunch of board meetings.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I hope not. But it's again, it's like it's kind of nice about like scooping a naturally existing sort of like friend group, people that were performing around the same time as it, just sort of like I would say it kind of naturally occurred that way, but I would imagine that there is like a lot of I think about casting in VIP, like there is a lot of thought and care that goes into it, and we're just really lucky to like have a lot of people around us that just are very talented and ready to go and just waiting for the moment.